Hey, everybody, and welcome from Sportsnaut.com, the inaugural show of the NFL Playbook Podcast from Sportsnaut. Thanks for being with us. I'm Scott Gulbransen, joined by my co-host, Evan Groat, and we are going to be with you every week talking about what's happening around the NFL. We got a jam-packed show, lots of news happening across the league. Also, we have a guest, Chris Perkins, from the Sun Sentinel down in South Florida to talk Miami Dolphins. Yes, they're going into Buffalo to take on the Bills in the weekend's biggest game, in my view, and we're going to talk about that. Evan, man, it's good to be here. Great for Sportsnaut to get us together, this brand new podcast to talk all things NFL.
Absolutely, Scott. Anytime I get to team up with you on a project, that gets me excited, and I'm ready to share my passion for football with all the people out there that are watching us, hopefully on our YouTube channel and listening to us wherever you get your podcast. So don't forget to subscribe to the show as well, and subscribe to that YouTube channel as well.
Well, good. I'm glad you're excited to be with me. I don't know if I'm as excited to be with me as you are, but anyway, that's all good. But we're going to talk about top stories around the NFL. Of course, NFL season, it's now 12 months. I mean, there's the season when there's games played, but the NFL is going all year round. And of course, top stories are filtering in during this midweek period as we talk to you and you listen to this on a Thursday. And that is, we're going to start in New York. Okay, Evan? I mean, what is the poor Jets? And I'm not going to say I'm sorry for the Jets, the fans, the organization, but the fans, because not only do you lose Aaron Rodgers after 4 plays, right? Then you have all the other things happening in the organization. They don't know what to do. Such a promising season with that great young defense kind of goes down the chute. Now Zach Wilson not performing as they wanted to, so he seems to have left off where he did last year. And now there's maybe some discord happening in the locker room. We're starting to see these reports all over the web about people not being happy with Coach Robert Saleh's loyalty towards Zach Wilson. Even a report today that somebody threw a football at his head. I don't know. That has not been confirmed, so let's take that with a grain of salt. But, man, the Jets cannot buy a break.
No, what a turn of events in New York. I mean, they go from being the offseason darlings, Super Bowl favorites. They were featured on this past season's HBO Hard Knocks. All kinds of momentum, of course, bringing in Aaron Rodgers to be their quarterback to help fix that offense to go along with that top 5 defense they had from a year ago. And then within 4 plays, it all just crumbles right before their eyes. I listen to a lot of national radio here, and I hear a lot of Jets fans calling into the various talk shows, and they just feel like they're cursed. And so, part of me feels bad for Jets fans. I'm a Raiders fan, so I don't have too much sympathy for other fan bases because, Raiders have had their fair share of failures over the last few years, but just a heartbreaking turn of events for the Jets. Zach Wilson is not the answer. I'm actually surprised that their head coach, Robert Saleh, is being so loyal to them, being so loyal to him, I should say. I would make a change, personally. I've seen enough of Zach Wilson, but he feels that apparently he still gives them the best option to win. I don't see it, and you can see it starting to divide the locker room. I think this is spiraling out of control for the Jets.
Yeah, and they did sign veteran Trevor Siemian to the practice squad. He's basically their third quarterback, and it appears as of late Wednesday that he will be inactive. Of course, he just got there. He's got to learn the playbook, all that jazz. So clearly the Jets looking for a veteran quarterback. And then, of course, Evan, you start to hear all these rumors and these wishful thinking type conversations. For example, well, Kirk Cousins having a great year. Vikings are not. Vikings are 0-3. Of course, the 4 0-3 teams play one another this week in the NFL. So somebody's going to come out, 2 teams are going to come out 0-4. And some people saying, well, listen, if the Vikings are 0-4, trade Kirk Cousins while you can. The problem is the Jets have all that money sunk into Aaron Rodgers. They can't just go sign another or trade for a big money quarterback in that situation. And I think if you're the Vikings, Kirk Cousins is the only thing you got going for you. I know you have Justin Jefferson there and all that. But at the end of the day, it's hard to get a good quarterback, as you mentioned, your Raiders know, because they went out and got Jimmy Garoppolo and things have not worked out well, and we'll talk about that in a few. But look, I just don't see, there's no easy out for the Jets. They have that defense. They just need a quarterback who can come in, be efficient, be consistent, and move the team down the field. Now, we have a lot devoted to the AFC East on today's show because we're going to be talking about the Dolphins in the next segment. They're going to play the Bills. The Bills, Dolphins, even the Patriots in that defense have played well. They're going down to Dallas this weekend. It's a tough division. Remember when it used to just be the Patriots and everyone else in the division? Now the Patriots are at the bottom of the division, really, although the Jets, with what's going on there, it's just so hard to grasp, like you said, because of what was happening in the preseason. But that division's going to beat up on each other.
Yeah, and to your point about the talks about Kirk Cousins, I don't see that happening. Like you said, there's a lot of money tied up right now with Aaron Rodgers, and the last time I checked, Kirk Cousins was making a lot of money as well. So that would complicate their cap situation. And I know that I do believe he's a free agent at the end of this season. So there is
Correct.
the possibility that he won't be back with the Vikings. But like you said, he's playing really well for them right now. And if there's any chance of them to try to turn the season around, you got to have Kirk Cousins in there. I know the data that's out there and the statistics that are out there for teams that start 0-3, not a very high probability that you make the playoffs, but there's still some good players on this team. This team, I believe, won 13 games last year. A lot of them close scoring, one-score games, but I still think they have what they need in the building to turn it around if they are going to do that. So I don't think trading Kirk Cousins is a good move there. And I just think the Jets are kind of in a really bad spot right now. I just don't think there's any other options out there right now. I've heard Joe Flacco's name tossed around a little bit as well. He was with them, I believe it was last year or a year before. Yeah. He played okay for them as well. I don't know if he's the answer, but I think going out and bringing in a guy like Kirk Cousins, a blockbuster trade like that, I just don't see that being in the cards for the Jets.
No, they've given up too much already to get quarterbacks, including Zach Wilson. Remember the price they paid for that one, and now they're basically eating it, and it's unfortunate. We're starting with the negative stuff first, guys, today. I know you should probably start with the positive, right? But what about the Denver Broncos? I mean, we got to talk about this team. So Sean Payton, right? Apparently, when Sean Payton took this job, Evan, I was told that this guy walks on water, okay? That this guy was going to turn around this Broncos team. And then we have, of course, during the preseason, offseason, after he got the job, he went to town on Nathaniel Hackett, the former coach. This is something coaches usually do not do to one another publicly. They don't criticize or put down the guy that came before them, even if they were horrible. And Nathaniel Hackett, as a head coach, was horrible in Denver. So then Sean Payton does that, speaks out of school, really ruffled a lot of feathers. Then they get into the season. They can't win a football game. And not only that, they get throttled by 50 points against the Dolphins last weekend. It's hard. If you're a Broncos fan, it's got to be tough to wake up each day and think about your team.
Yeah, again, as a Raiders fan, I don't mind seeing the Broncos getting beat by 50. I actually found that pretty hilarious. But I bet you right now, if you were to ask Sean Payton, he probably wishes he was back out in L.A. working on the set of Fox
TV.
Sports. Yeah, on TV. I'm sure he would take that gig right now over the one that he's currently got. But yeah, I was wrong 2 times about the Broncos. I thought last year when they brought in Russell Wilson, I thought they were going to be a much better team than they were. I was wrong on that. Wilson was terrible. I think a lot of that had to do with Hackett. He wasn't great. We all know that. But then this year they go out and bring in this big time head coach. And you know what? I thought they were going to be much improved again. And I was wrong again. So there's a lot of problems right now in Denver. I do think that Peyton has gotten Russell Wilson to play a little bit better, but defensively, there's all kinds of problems. When you give up 70 points as an NFL team, there's a major problem there. That's an embarrassment. And so there's a lot of work to be done there in Denver. We'll see if he can get it going here in the near future.
And of course, after the game with the Dolphins, Sean Payton takes all his frustration out on a reporter. So obviously, and you know what? You know that's going to happen in that situation because there's going to get questions and they're not going to want to answer the questions. And so that's what happens. I mean, you see it in Denver, but just a mess happening there. And you wonder where they go from here. They have to put something together. They have to be able to win a football game. And like you said, Russell Wilson, I expected him to have a bounce back year. Hasn't happened yet. To your point, I think there is better news there. He looks more comfortable. But again, you're down by 50 points and you had him in the game. I mean, all the money they have sunk into Russell Wilson, yes, they got to get performance out of him. I just don't understand it. And that's where, it's easy for us to sit here on a podcast and second guess coaches. But some decisions you just don't understand. And when you talk about coaching decisions, the name Brandon Staley has to come up, right? The Chargers coach.
Yes.
Brandon Staley is known for these crazy fourth down. Let's go for it on 4th and 1 from our own 24-yard line, like he did against the Minnesota Vikings. Now, it worked out well for him this time, Evan, as the Chargers, because Justin Herbert was 40 of 47 for almost 400 yards and really had a great game. And they were able to have actually a defensive stand at the end and intercept Kirk Cousins. But overall, it blows your mind when you think these guys are making millions of dollars. Now, it worked out for him now, but it didn't work out for him several times over the last couple of years, which is why the Chargers, in some people's view, have underperformed. When you look at that, do you have respect for him for doing what he does? Or are you asking yourself the question a lot of people are, and that is this guy absolutely crazy?
Yeah, I will say, I disagree with a lot of the decisions that he makes, to go for it on his own side of the football field. We saw him do it in that week 17 game, that must-win game against the Raiders, where it backfired on him a couple of years ago. I disagree with his decisions. But I will say this about him. I give him credit for one thing. When he's making those risky decisions like that, at least he's showing 100% confidence and faith in his offense that, they're going to pick up this first down, whether it's 4th and 1 from your own 25-yard line. I mean, I will give him credit on that decision, because I know we're going to get into this one as well. A fellow AFC West coach, Josh McDaniels, what we saw from him this past Sunday night is where he had an opportunity to go for it on the Steelers' 8-yard line. He took his offense off the field, which to me didn't show a lot of confidence in his offense and faith in his offense. And so I think that really irritates the fan base, and it's got to bother the team as well, that the coach isn't showing faith in his offense. So again, going back to Brandon Staley, I got to give him credit. He does show a lot of faith in his offense to put him back out there and try to go for those fourth downs, even if they're in a very risky field position situation.
Absolutely. But yeah, we'll see. And you mentioned Josh McDaniels out in Las Vegas with the Raiders, and it's sort of, they play each other this week on Sunday in the afternoon game, of course, because it's West Coast. And I called it the bad coaching bowl, because you have Brandon Staley with these terrible fourth down calls, which have rarely made it, have really succeeded, really, although it did this time, as I mentioned. But now you have Josh McDaniels, who is down by 8 points last week against the Steelers on Sunday Night Football, and on the 8-yard line for Pittsburgh. And instead of going with his high-priced offense, his offense has the 5th highest cap number of any offense in the NFL. So his offense is getting a lot of money. They have a lot of weapons. They have Devontae Adams. They have Josh Jacobs, the reigning rushing champion. They have a good slot receiver in Hunter Renfrow. They have Michael Mayer, who they drafted out of Notre Dame. The Jacoby Myers, the guy they brought over from the pay, all these weapons, and Josh McDaniels kicks it, and then in the post-game press conference says, well, we needed 2 possessions. Now, did you need 2 possessions to win the game? Yes, but you can't go to win the game if you don't tie the game, and you're giving the ball back with less than 2 minutes left, or around 2 minutes, I should say, and Kenny Pickett and the Steelers just run the clock out. So, there's some people out there are defending. Some people who know football better than I do are defending him. I just don't see it. You either have confidence in your offense, and clearly Josh McDaniels, the biggest mistake I think he's made as Las Vegas Raiders coach was this error, and it comes at game 20 for him. The Raiders 1-5 over their last 6, by the way, Evan, going to last year. It doesn't look like things are working out for him in Vegas.
No, it's not. And to me, getting back to that play that's been so scrutinized all this week, there's 2 factors that I think he should have been considering. And I know it's easy for me to sit here in hindsight and talk about these things, but when the Raiders attempted the field goal in the first place on the first 4th down, where there was the penalty, there was 3 minutes and 11 seconds on the clock at that point. He opted to bring the offense back on the field. Okay. When they got back down to the 8-yard line, 1 minute was taken off the clock. So now you're around 2 minutes, and I believe it was 22 seconds at the time when the 4th and 4 occurred. I think once he made the decision to bring the offense back onto the field, you're fully committed now to trying to tie the game at that point in time. So when he decided to bring the field goal unit out at 4th and 4 from the 8, you just wasted a full minute off the clock. Why not just kick it with 3:11, take the 3 points, and then you at least give your defense more time to get you the ball back? Because what we saw happen is they got the ball back, but there was only 12 seconds left on the clock. Had he had that extra minute, you never know what could have happened. And then the other thing that should have been considered is, okay, if you go for it on fourth and 4 from the 8 and you don't get it, okay, the Steelers are taking over on their own 8-yard line. Most likely they're going to try to run the ball because that's generally not a throwing situation from that, point in the field. You got 3 timeouts there. You're going to get the ball back possibly with 2 minutes or just under 2 minutes left on the clock, and you give your offense a much better chance to drive back down there and get the 8 points to tie the game. But I disagree with the decision that he made, and I think it's fair, the criticism that he's getting from a lot of people this week.
Yeah, the Raiders go to 1-2, and they face the Chargers, as I mentioned, in Los Angeles. Now let's get to some of the good stuff around the league. How about the Green Bay Packers, the black and blue division? They're atop the division with 2-1, tied with the Detroit Lions, who are also having a nice start to their season. The Vikings and Bears at 0-3. They face off this weekend at Lambeau Field. And the Packers, Jordan Love, they get rid of Aaron Rodgers, and now you see why, because Jordan Love has come out. They had the nice comeback against the New Orleans Saints. And I know some people want to Derek Carr went out. Doesn't matter. They still came back from it. And with a kid, I say kid, he's in his 3rd year. When you have Jordan Love there, he was tutoring under Aaron Rodgers, and boy, is he making throws. Evan, the one touchdown he had in the corner of the end zone towards the end of the game was unreal. You talk about a bullet, a dime, whatever you want to call it. It was dead on. These Green Bay Packers, I didn't give them much of a chance this year. I really thought the Lions would win that division. I still think they will. I thought the Vikings would be a little better. I think they still will be. But you got to be impressed with this young Packers team.
Yeah, I'm very impressed by this Packers team. And I think they're one of the contenders in the AFC, below of course, the top 3 teams in the conference with the 49ers and the Eagles and the Cowboys. I think the Packers are in that next tier. And I would say if you're a Packers fan right now, you have to be very happy with the way the transition from Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love has gone. We've seen him in some spot starts over the past couple of years, and it didn't look good. But I would say, he's looking like a legit starting quarterback right now. And he did this last week. I know you mentioned Derek Carr wasn't there for the majority of this, I believe the second half. But he did this against a really good Saints defense. And he did it without Aaron Jones, starting running back, and Christian Watson, one of his top young wide receivers. So I'm impressed by the Packers. Their defense looks pretty good. Rashad Gary is a monster right now. I was looking on PFF today. He's among the league leaders in pass rush, win rate, and all of those different types of analytics. So I'm really impressed with this Packers team. And they got a really big game this week on Thursday night against the Detroit Lions. So that's going to be a big one, along with the Miami and the Buffalo Bills game this week. Two really good games going on this week.
Absolutely. That one, obviously, tonight on Thursday. And we'll finish this segment talking about another team. You mentioned them already, which is the San Francisco 49ers. Wow. The thing with the 49ers, and I would have put Dallas, I think our Sportsnaut ranking still has the Cowboys at number 1. Our guy, Matt Johnson, who does that, still has them at number 1. But I still like the 49ers as the number 1 team because, listen, you look at what they've been able to do. And Brock Purdy, is he playing terrible? No. Is he playing as well as he did last year? No. He hasn't found his rhythm yet. He seems a little bit slow, a little bit out of sync. But these 49ers keep continuing to win. He does enough for them to get there. If he starts to hit his stride, to me, it's really scary. Now, the Dallas defense, no question. I know they lost to the Cardinals, the upstart Cardinals. You got to give Gannon some credit down there. The new coach there is doing a great job with that talent level that they have and without Kyler Murray. But you see what's going on in San Francisco. And I'll tell you what, Eagles are good, as you said. And, of course, the Cowboys are good. But this team just seems built to win and win now. And I just don't see anybody equal to them.
Yeah, if I'm doing NFL power rankings, I'm putting the 49ers at the top. They look like they are on a mission right now after what happened to them in the NFC Championship game last year. You mentioned Brock Purdy. What is he, 10-11-0 right now as a starter? I mean, the guy just does not lose. I'm wondering how much longer this is gonna last.
When does the carriage turn into a pumpkin, right?
Yeah, it's a Cinderella story, really. But, they're continuing to get it done with a really strong defense right now, ranked third in the NFL in total yards, fifth in points allowed. So really strong defense. I think Nick Bosa is going to continue to get better as he gets himself back into playing shape. And there's just a lot of weapons on the offense as well. Deebo Samuel's one of my favorite players in the league to watch. And McCaffrey's, if he stays healthy.
Oof.
Yeah, I mean, and then they got Kyle Shanahan the mastermind designing all of these great plays for this offense. So they're very well rounded. They're balanced. They've got a great offensive line. So they're going to be hard to beat.
They are going to be hard to beat. And before we go to break, I lied. We're going to do one more thing, and that is you got to talk about the story, right? We talked about it at the beginning of the show a little bit, which is the Miami Dolphins. I mean, the Miami Dolphins can be scary good. I mean, as long as Tua is healthy, right? That's the caveat because he's gotten hurt a lot. I mean, that's all you can say. Not his fault. It's not like he has nagging injuries. These are all things that happen on the field of play. But this team, Evan, and we're going to talk about it again with Chris Perkins after the break, our guest, is just remarkable. And they're getting ready to go up to Buffalo this weekend. Boy, they look pretty complete.
Oh, absolutely. And Scott, I have to correct you. We keep talking about the top stories in the NFL. We're forgetting the top story this week in the NFL. And whether you guys want to admit it or not, it's Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift going to the Chiefs game in Travis Kelce's suite, sitting next to his mother.
Oh, yeah.
And, I think we all learned a valuable lesson here, just to kind of get away from football for 1 second.
Yeah.
We all learned a valuable lesson from Travis Kelce this past week. And it's, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. He put it out there.
George, yeah.
Yeah. He made her the friendship bracelet, invited her to the game. And you know what? He's winning both on and off the field right now. And so he should be the poster boy for the motto, shoot your shot. Right. So kudos to him for that. But getting back to football and getting back to the Dolphins, yeah, they're a big story this week. All the points they scored against Denver last week. This offense is just fun to watch. They're explosive. They're fast. I saw some stats out there. According to Next Gen, they track fastest ball carriers in the NFL. They have the top 5 fastest ball carriers in the league this year.
It's crazy.
All from the same team. So what I like is that Mike McDaniel, he had a vision of what he wanted this team to look like. He wanted it to be built around speed. What did he do? When he comes in, he goes out and trades for Tyreek Hill. He brings Raheem Mostert with him from San Francisco. And then not only was he able to have all this speed with him, he's got the creativity to implement the game plan, implement the scheme, and he knows how to get these players in positions to utilize that speed and to be successful. So it's a perfect marriage right now with what you're seeing in Miami. But I think they're going to have a tall task here coming to Buffalo this week to face this Buffalo defense who's playing really well right now.
All right. Well, when we come back from this break here on the NFL Playbook Podcast, we're going to talk to Chris Perkins from the South Florida Sun-Sentinel about said Dolphins, because it is a big game. And then after that, in our last segment, Evan and I are going to tell you who's going to win. Yes, you can take all your money and put it all on where we say it's going to win. No, actually, kidding. I'm not suggesting you do that, but we'll talk about that and wrap up the show in that third segment. But first, a break. Again, the NFL Playbook Podcast. Evan and Scott, we're coming right back.
Welcome back, everybody, to Sportsnaut's NFL Playbook Podcast. Scott and Evan here with you. Please make sure you go out and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. We're going to go out to the guest line now and welcome in Chris Perkins joining us from the Florida Sun-Sentinel. Chris is a beat writer for the Miami Dolphins, and we want to get some of his insight here onto the Dolphins. And we also want to ask you a little bit about their matchup this week with the Miami Dolphins. Chris, we saw what the Dolphins were able to do last week, scoring all of those points. It's been the talk of the NFL this week. They were missing one of their key components last week, Jalen Waddle. They might need him against this really good Buffalo defense this week. Do you have an update for us on his status?
Yeah, I do. Jalen Waddle was out there for practice today, but he could be removed from concussion protocol later on today. We'll just have to wait and see. So I would say right now he would be questionable for the game. It would be a huge, huge boost if they had him. But on the other hand, you guys saw they scored 70 without him last week, 726 yards, 10 touchdowns. But Buffalo is different. They've won up there twice since 2011. They haven't won up there since 2016. And you guys know they're coming off those back-to-back losses at Buffalo, 32-29 last year, late in the regular season, 34-31 in the wild card. So while they might not need Jalen Waddle, it sure would be nice to have him.
Yeah, Buffalo's been a tough place for Miami to try to find a win. I was listening to Buffalo's head coach Sean McDermott this week. He referred to Mike McDaniel and what he's doing with his offense as revolutionary. And what we're seeing is he's utilizing a very high percentage of motion in that offense. And so based on what you're seeing, you cover the team on a week-to-week basis. What are some of the things? How is using all of this motion making it a challenge for opposing defenses?
The biggest thing is with Tyreek Hill. When Tyreek gets that running start, it's so hard to cover that guy. From a standstill, it's hard to cover Tyreek because he's so fast, he's so quick, and he's so strong. But you put this guy in motion, and now he's got a running start. It's almost impossible to keep up with Tyreek. And Tyreek can stop so quickly that once he gets going, and if he just runs a comeback or a button hook, he's got so much space that he's cleared for himself. It's hard to cover him. So that's number one. Number two is all of this motion makes the defense constantly communicate with each other and constantly change and constantly think about the possibilities that could be coming. So that's another thing. And then one of the other things is so many people go in motion. You'll see Tyreek Hill in motion one play. The next play is the tight end, Durham Smythe. The next play is the fullback, Alec Ingold. Then it's another wide receiver, Jalen Waddle. And teams just don't know what to do with it. And then off of all that motion, Mike McDaniel and Frank Smith, the offensive coordinator, and the other coaches are always looking to see what did they do? How did they react to that motion? So you put Tyreek in motion and maybe Tyreek doesn't get the ball, but it's like, what did they do? After somebody got the ball, what did they do with Tyreek? Did they pay attention to him? Did they devote two people to him? So all the motion does so many things for this offense, and it's so much motion that it is revolutionary. There's offenses that use motion, but I'm not sure that they use it in the style that Mike McDaniel and for the reasons that Mike McDaniel is using it, and the frequency also.
Yeah, it's crazy, Chris. I mean, watching that game, I had so much fun watching that game, right? Because I'm covering 4 games at once, but I'm watching this game and I can't take my eyes off it, especially when they're on offense. It was a thing of beauty. It was amazing to watch. One of the things that's powering this too, and I want to get your opinion on this, because heading into Buffalo, of course, Buffalo's got a formidable defensive front, but the Dolphins' offensive line is really doing a great job, not only in pass protection, but of course, as we saw with the run. Talk a little bit about that and how they're going to match up against that Bills defense.
Biggest surprise on the team is that offensive line. There's no doubt, because there were so many questions coming into the season, right? Left tackle Teron Armstead and his health. He's a Pro Bowl player, but he missed 4 or 5 games last season. So his health, he missed the first 2 games this season. His health is always something that you're looking at. Over on the other side, right tackle Austin Jackson, he only played 2 games last year because of ankle injuries. So you had questions at both of the tackles. And then at left guard, you had a question. Liam Eichenberg was the starter last year. Isaiah Wynn is the starter this year. So Eichenberg lost his job. So right there were 3 questions on the offensive line between both tackles and left guard. They've answered those pretty well so far through 3 games. Kendall Lamb started for Teron Armstead a couple of times. Isaiah Wynn there at the left guard, Kendall Lamb at left tackle, Isaiah Wynn at left guard, and then Austin Jackson has been really good at right tackle. At right guard, you've got Robert Hunt, who's on the verge of a Pro Bowl. He's developed so well. And now at center, Connor Williams, who came over from Dallas, he's a converted left guard. You're having some center quarterback exchange problems, but still, he's a solid center. Pro Football Focus, if you listen to them and believe them, they've got the Dolphins number 2 in pass block efficiency. Last week, they rushed for 350 yards, so you know they can run block. So, yeah, I don't know how they've done it. And by the way, they've got a new offensive line coach, Butch Berry, who was in Denver last year, and you know he enjoyed that victory because one of the stories was the Denver offensive line disliked him so much that when they heard he wasn't coming back, some of the guys applauded. So,
wow.
So this is it's a small miracle that this offensive line is doing what it's doing. By to one sack, you know. So it's just amazing. I don't know how they've done it. I don't know how long it's going to last. But my hat is off to those guys at this point.
You know, Chris, you mentioned the success of the offensive line. I'm curious because of they had this rookie Devon Achane who had his breakout performance last week. They have Raheem Mostert who is playing really well right now. How do you see McDaniel kind of divvying out these touches with the running backs? Is it more of a week to week game plan type of thing, or do you think he's going to go with the hot hand approach? What's your take on that?
I think Raheem Mostert is the guy who's going to be always there. And then after that, it probably does go in a week-to-week opponent matchup type situation. You know, it's interesting. I talked to Jimbo Fisher, the Texas A&M coach who was Devon Achane's coach in college. And yes, you pronounced it right. Very nice, Achane, because it just changed from Achane. You're paying attention. You got an A today. But one thing that Jimbo Fisher told me was that Devon Achane at 5'8", 188, whatever he is, he can run between the tackles and he can pass protect. And Jimbo was right. You know, we've seen that so far. We've only seen a little bit of HM, but we did see this in preseason and in training camp that he can pass protect and he can run between the tackles. So that makes him even more valuable. And one other thing that the Dolphins have done with HM is they've kind of incorporated him into special teams. You know, he's a kickoff returner, but he's been on the kickoff coverage team also. And this means if he's on that active game day roster, you can find other snaps for him. You can find other ways to get him on the field. So it's a logjam back there at running back. And I'll tell you this also, you know, some people have said, well, maybe when Jeff Wilson gets healthy, maybe you trade him for something else. I'm not sure that that's going to happen. I will say this, I would be more willing to trade a running back than one of those cornerbacks. The cornerbacks get hurt so often. And you know, we know that Jalen Ramsey is out. So I wouldn't be that opposed to trading Jeff Wilson, but I think you're probably going to keep him in the fold when he comes back from the injured reserve list and just kind of see what you've got, because I know that McDaniel really, really trusts Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson. They were with him back in San Francisco.
Chris, on the defensive side of the ball, there were so many subtexts, and you already mentioned one with the offensive line earlier in the game against Denver and the big win. Of course, Vic Fangio. Talk about his influence on this defense and on the entire team, because when you have someone like that in the building, especially as brilliant as Mike McDaniel is, he's a young coach, right? And having a guy like Vic Fangio, what has he meant for that staff and for the evolution of the Dolphins defense?
It's been an interesting contrast because he does things differently than Mike McDaniel. Mike McDaniel is 40 years old, listens to 90s hip hop. He's a player empowerment guy, and he doesn't believe in long training camps, grind it out. He's kind of in and out. He lets the players rest. He listens to the analytics and let them rest their body. On the other hand, you have crusty Vic Fangio, right? 65 years old, been in the league forever, and he's used to a grinded out training camp where you're out there all the time and you're in pads and you're hitting. And so it's an interesting contrast. And my hat is off to Mike McDaniel for being secure enough to hire a guy like Vic Fangio, a guy who has been a head coach, who has skins on the wall. And Mike McDaniel is not threatened by that. He's not threatened by the difference of opinion that Vic Fangio brings, the difference of style. And so you really have a head coach for the defense over there is really what you have. They're two separate coaching styles here, but Vic Fangio has brought so much credibility and confidence, a different style of play than we saw under Brian Flores and Josh Boyer, the two previous defensive coordinators. Both of those guys like to blitz a lot. Both of those guys like to play press man. Vic Fangio is different. Vic Fangio keeps two deep safeties. Vic Fangio doesn't blitz a lot. Vic Fangio plays own defense. And so, for the Dolphins, this has been almost a 180-degree change as far as playing style. But I really do at this point, I think it fits their talent a lot better. And so it's been a good union, Vic Fangio and this defense. And look, he's been doing this without Jalen Ramsey, who might be the best defensive player he is the best defensive player on the team. There's no might about it. I mean, so, it's really been an interesting team to watch from all standpoints. I mean, offense, defense. We can talk special teams where the Dolphins might be vulnerable there against Buffalo. It'll be a close game, I think. And the Dolphins have given up a kickoff return. They've missed an extra point. They missed a field goal attempt, had a field goal attempt blocked. But I think I think the Vic Fangio defense will keep the scoring down enough that it gives their offense a chance to win and perhaps cancels out any chance of a special team blunder costing them the game.
Hey, Chris, I've got one more for you before we get you out of here. And I want to stay on the topic of Mike McDaniel. I listened to him in his press conferences when he meets with the media. He seems like a real laid back kind of guy. He's very mellow, cracks a lot of jokes. He's got a lot of personality. He looks cool on the sidelines. He's got the comb over and the aviator glasses going on. And, you look at the way the team plays. They look loose. They look like they're having fun. We saw the conga line, the team celebrating. It really looks like this team has taken on the personality of their coach. What are the players saying about their head coach?
They love Mike McDaniel. This is a guy, everything you say, I mean, the guy is fun. Like, the press conferences are fun. And I'll say this about Mike McDaniel, and, he has really earned my respect. Last season, you guys know they started off on a 3-game win streak. Then they win 3, they lose 3, they win 5, they lose 5. And then they won that last one. But throughout that 5-game losing streak, which went through December, playoff chances diminishing, Mike McDaniel was pretty much the same guy. He wasn't cracking as many jokes because things aren't as funny when you're on a 5-game losing streak, but he did maintain his sense of humor, and I respected him for that. So he's a breath of fresh air. One thing that he's done in that locker room is usually locker rooms you sit by position group. Offensive linemen are here, and defensive linemen and wide receivers. Mike McDaniel has mixed up the locker room. So it could be a wide receiver sitting by the kicker, sitting by the quarterback, sitting by an offensive lineman. And his thing was, I want these guys to get to know each other. I want them to mix that, like in position groups and in offense meetings and on the bus and on the airplane. And when you're eating, you're always sitting with the same group. I want you guys to get to know each other. And so that's one of the things that he's done that's been different. But, he lets players be players. And he's not a big, I'm going to rule everything with an iron fist and I'm going to tell you how it is. Mike McDaniel listens. It's kind of like, I'll let you be a grown man. I'll respect your space. I'll respect you. I'll let you be who you are, but you just got to bust your butt when you're out there. It seems to work. Players really enjoy playing for Mike McDaniel. He is a different type of coach. And look, so far, his way is winning.
Yeah, he certainly beats to, the beat of his own drum. And, his players seem to be responding well to it right now as the Dolphins are having a lot of success right now. Chris, we thank you for the time. Chris Perkins from the Florida Sun Sentinel. We appreciate your time and your insight. Keep up all your great work.
All right, guys, have me back. I'll do it again.
All right. Thank you, Chris.
All right.
All right. There you go, Evan. Man, good stuff. Just to hear, like you said, he's there in the building every day covering the team. And Mike McDaniel, man, it's like lightning in a bottle right now for him. And he seems to be hitting on all the things, and it's interesting because Chris mentioned his age, 40 years old. And again, you have a lot of coaches in the NFL older, right? And you're relating to these guys in their 20s. Mike McDaniel kind of walks the walk a little bit. Now, he doesn't just talk it, he walks it. And man, I think it's making a big difference down there.
Yeah, I mean, he has his own unique style, a way of doing things, and this is a copycat league, the NFL, and we touched on some of the things that he's doing on offense with the high percentage of motion. That number is 59% right now, and that's the highest percentage of motion that's ever been used in the NFL, going back to 2017 when they started tracking that sort of information. So I would expect other coaches around the league to start trying to implement some of the things that Mike McDaniel is doing. And he's only 40 years old. He's only his second year as a head coach, and he's having so much success early on. Like I said, he's a cool guy. He looks cool. I'm jealous of him personally. I wish he was the coach of my Raiders, but anyhow,
yeah, don't get started now.
He's doing some good things there in Miami. All right, we're going to step aside here and we're going to take a quick break. And when we return, we're going to talk a little bit more about what I feel is the game of the week here in Buffalo, New York. The Miami Dolphins take on the Buffalo Bills. You don't want to miss that conversation coming up here in the final segment of the show.
Welcome back. It is the NFL Playbook Podcast from Sportsnaut. I'm Scott Gulbransen along with my co-host, and that is Evan Groat. And I've turned, if you're watching the video, I've turned my hat backwards so I can be cool like Evan. All this talk about Mike McDaniel being cool. I'm like, Evan's pretty cool. I'll put my hat on backwards. I never wear my hat backwards because I'm not a catcher. But anyway.
Scott, I turned 40 this year and I've got a lot of gray hair under here. So I'm just trying to keep myself looking young and hip. So
I got hat hair and gray hair. So there you go. But I have hair, right? So it's a trade. Everything in life is a trade-off. Man, great interview with Chris Perkins. And what's interesting is, he's an objective reporter. If you read his stuff in the Sun Sentinel, really, really great reporter covering the NFL for a long time. But his excitement, it shows you how that stuff can be contagious. Even for the people who are paid to write about the team objectively, it's just when things are moving like that, it's hard for him not to do it, especially when you're seeing, and you had that great question about the motion in the offense and how he's really doing innovative things in South Florida. And you see it in Chris's reaction. And that's amazing. I mean, there's a lot of NFL fans watching this podcast or listening to this podcast wishing their teams had a little bit of that mojo.
Oh, absolutely. It is contagious. And winning makes everything better in the NFL, right?
Yeah.
And so, they're down there in South Florida where everything's a bit more fun anyways to begin with. And so when your football team's playing well, it makes you feel real good. And so, Dolphins are off to a good start right now, but you know what? They were off to a really good start last year. In fact, they started out 8-3 last year, and they ended up losing 5 of their last 6 games. Of course, the injuries, the concussions that Tua suffered was a major part of that. But we'll see. We'll see if they can continue to play well throughout this season and put together a full season. But they're off to a good start. Yeah,
and we talked about the Jets way earlier in the show, but that's the thing. The only thing that worries me about the Dolphins, and we're going to get into the Dolphins in Buffalo here because we just have a few minutes left. But Tua, with the history of injury, he's not a big guy, right? We know that he's not a big guy. Reminds me of another quarterback in upstate New York who played in high school. What was his name again? Oh, yeah. What number was he again? Okay.
We'll save those stories for another show.
We'll save those for another show. Evan played quarterback, and he's got video. I was pretty impressed. Anyway, but yeah, so I think that's the only thing that can derail that. I'm not saying every team goes through the ups and downs of the season, and the Dolphins will too. It's like nothing is perfect. Nothing lasts forever. But this game on Sunday, I'm so pumped up for this game, Evan. You're in Buffalo. You live up there. Your wonderful wife happens to be a Bills fan, and unfortunately, she's poisoned your kids. No, I'm just kidding. And they're Bills fans. But this game is going to be a big, big challenge for the Dolphins. And hey, look, if they lose the game, nobody would fault them. Like, it's a tough place to play. It always has been. The Bills, Josh Allen is himself again. He's not turning the ball over, right? They look good. So you would expect the home team in the NFL to win most of the time. But if the Dolphins can go in there, play them tough, or beat them, then you have to say, whoa, wait a minute, this thing is for real. I'm not saying it's not now because of what they're doing, but tell me what you think the keys to this game are with the Dolphins and the Bills.
Well, first of all, our guest, Chris, put it out there. The Dolphins have really struggled when coming to Buffalo. They have not won here since 2016. That's when Tua was a senior in high school, by the way. That's how long it's been. Not that he's an old guy or anything.
No.
But it's just been a place where Miami has really struggled. Now, part of the reason why they have struggled to play in Buffalo is because sometimes those games are in mid to late December. And you told everyone, I live here in Western New York, in Buffalo. So you will hear me complain in probably about 3 weeks. You're going to hear me complain about frigid temperatures, snowstorms, and all of those things. So I'm just warning you right now. But yeah, sometimes the weather plays a major factor in these games. That's not going to be the case this weekend. The forecast is supposed to be really beautiful here for this time of year. 78 degrees, full sun on Sunday. So that won't be a factor. But the other thing, Josh Allen, he is playing much better right now. He's protecting the ball. He's not making those, Superman hero plays on every single down. He's taking what the defense is giving him, and he's had a lot of success against the Dolphins. He's 8-2 over his career. And in those 10 games, he's averaging 268 yards passing, just under 3 touchdowns per game. And his passer rating is a 106. So, it's definitely going to be a tall task for Miami, and not to take anything away from Miami and what they've been able to do so far this year. But I went back and looked at the teams they've played this year. The teams that they have played this year have a combined record of 2-7. So they haven't been tested like they're going to be this week in Buffalo, and playing at Highmark Stadium is one of the true home field advantages in the NFL. That place is going to be rocking. Trust me. I got a lot of friends that are Bills fans. They're excited about this game. And so I think we're going to see what the Dolphins are made of this week.
Absolutely. That's obviously the big marquee game. We talked about some of the other, including the Detroit Green Bay game, some really good action this week in the NFL. Well, we certainly appreciate you guys being with us on our first NFL Playbook podcast from Sportsnaut here with Evan and Scott. And we're going to be back every week going around the league, seeing what's going on, bringing on guests around big stories. That's why we had Chris on. The Dolphins were the big story this week. So we went out. Evan got a big heavy hitter for us. And there you are. But we hope you have fun with us. And you got to, as Evan said at the beginning of the show, do us a favor. Make sure you subscribe here on YouTube. If you're watching us, not only subscribe, hit that notifications bell. That helps us out a lot, because every time we have a new video, you're going to know first, which is great. And then if you're listening to us on the audio portion of this, welcome. Make sure you look for the podcast wherever you get your audio, whether you're on Apple, whether you're on Google, whether you're on Spotify, doesn't matter. You will find Evan and I lurking around the corner, looking at you, waiting for you to talk about NFL football. It's going to be great. All right, but Evan, before we go, who wins, Buffalo or Miami? Now, I understand if you pick the Dolphins, you might have to sleep on the couch, but give me your true sense for what you think is going to happen.
Trust me when I tell you this. My wife did not threaten me to say this. I'm going with the Bills. And the main reason why I'm going with the Bills is because I just feel like they're the more well-rounded football team. No, their offense is not as explosive as Miami's, but they're the second highest scoring team in the NFL right now with 30 points a game. It's their defense. I think their defense is going to be the key in this game. They're generating a lot of pressure. They don't have to blitz to do it. In fact, they had the lowest blitz rate right now, one of the lowest blitz rates of any team in the NFL, but they have the highest pressure rate. So they're getting home with just their front four. That is allowing them to have guys sit back in coverage. And I just think their defense is going to be the factor, the key factor and the difference in this game for them.
Yeah, and I think they're going to actually do a pretty good job of containing Tyreek Hill as well with that defense. The game plan that they put into place there. I know the weather will be good, but I'm going to take Buffalo. I think Buffalo's going to win by 10. I really do. I think it'll be close for a while. I think it might be a little higher scoring than people anticipate. I'm kidding, of course, because they're not going to score 70. But I do think I think the Bills might get into the 31, 34 point range, and Miami around 28, somewhere around there. So I'm with you. I got the Bills in this one. We'll see. Dolphins fans who read and watch us on Sportsnaut, you'll have to accept our apology. But the Dolphins are getting close, and turnovers, injuries, all those kind of things can change the course of a game. So we'll have to see. But I know I will be glued to the TV Sunday watching this one. Evan, man, great show. I look forward to doing this with you every week. We're going to have fun talking about the NFL.
Absolutely, Scott. I'm excited about it. I'm glad we finally got this first show under our belt, and I hope that everyone out there sticks with us and comes along with us with this on this journey.
Absolutely. Every great journey starts with one step, and this is our first step. So thanks for being with us. Until next time, everybody, make sure you check out sportsnaut.com if you want your coverage of the NFL, college football, NBA, whatever you have on the docket that you want to know about. We got it for you. We cover it for you. So check out sportsnaut.com. For Evan Groat, I'm Scott Gulbransen. We'll talk to you next time.